Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 24 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're teaching your Raspberry Pi who's boss. What I'm going to need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee poured over ice. No sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Sunfounder. Sunfounder is actually sponsoring this most excellent set of Raspberry Pi tutorials. And in this class, we are using the most excellent, the most wonderful Sunfounder Raphael Raspberry Pi kit. Guys, it is a great kit. It's a great value. Most of you already have it. If you don't, look down in the description. There is a link over to Amazon and you can pick one up, and your life and my life will be much easier if we are working on identical hardware. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's talk about what I am going to teach you today. And I'm going to teach you a new component out of the Sunfounder kit, and the component that I am going to be learning you about. That's what I used to have a student that would come into class every day and he would say, learn me, like, kind of a funny story. But anyway, I digress. I'm going to learn you guys today. And what we're going to learn is we're going to learn about PIR motion sensor. What does PIR stand for, you ask? Passive infrared motion sensor. And it's a very simple little component. And the way the component works, let's go ahead and get it out so we can be looking at it while I am talking about it. So let me switch on over here to the overhead view. And so what I need you to do is get out your kits, and I better get my large noggin out of your way. And I better get a little more illumination here. There, that looks good. What we're going to do is we're going to dig down into the second level of this. Man, do you guys enjoy opening your little kit as much as I do and just see all the wonderful little electronic goodness in here and fun little things that we can work with for the next year? But I need you to find this component, okay? And what this is it's the one that looks like it kind of has a plastic dome. So it looks like that. That is your PIR motion sensor. And then also we're going to need 3 wires. And so I have got a convenient, and I'm going to connect directly to the Raspberry Pi. And so we're going to need the female to female wires. And those are not suitable. Let's see. I should have had these things all out and ready to go, but let me see if I can find 3. Those have the male end. A more professional operation would have had these wires already picked out, but it's like, that's not them. Am I just absolutely going crazy? Yeah, I need female to female. So, I have 2. There it is. I knew there was an orange one in there, but it was hiding from me. Okay, so let's get this all put back together in a nice organized fashion. We'll get this back in. We will close the lid, and now we'll talk a little bit about the PIR sensor, and you can see it here. And what this does is it's basically got a Fresnel lens on it. So there's an infrared sensor, there's a Fresnel lens, and that lens means that it is looking out over a wide field of view, and what it's detecting is infrared. But you can imagine what the challenge is that if you were just looking for an infrared signal, imagine you're pointing it at the room and the sun shines in the window and it warms a spot up on the wall. Well, is that an intruder, or is that a warm spot on the wall? Or similarly, if you just made a motion sensor and maybe there's a little breeze and your curtain is moving, well, is that a moving curtain, or is that an intruder? The really cool thing about the PIR sensors is they are fundamentally an infrared sensor, but what they're looking for is changes in the infrared profile. And so to trigger this sensor, it's a simple on-off trigger. It's either it's detected something or it's not. So its output is a 1 or a 0. So it's really easy to use, but it's very smart in that it triggers on 2 conditions, and these 2 conditions must both be true. It must see motion and it must see heat, a heated object motion. So an object that is warmer than the background infrared signal, and it is moving. And if you get those two conditions, it triggers. So if you had a dog walk through the room, the dog is warm and the dog is moving, so it triggers. But other moving objects shouldn't trigger it, and other just warm spots, like if you put a cup of hot coffee in front of it, if the coffee was still, it shouldn't trigger. So that's kind of what we're using. And I think this is one of the slickest components in here, because this is very valuable for using in other projects, or as part of a project. So imagine, if you will, that we wanted to have a camera that recorded when it sensed motion. Well, we would use this, and we've got the little camera, and we will be getting to the camera in the Raspberry Pi, in the Raspberry Pi kit. We will be getting to that camera as soon as we possibly can. But imagine that we hook the sensor and the camera to the Raspberry Pi, and then we let it sit, and anytime it saw this trigger, it would record, let's say, 30 seconds of video. So you could have a pretty slick little security camera that you built from scratch. So that's kind of the direction that we're going there. That is the direction. And so let's go ahead and hook this thing up. Let me show you. Let's see here. Let me kind of show you what we're dealing with here. If I can find my mouse cursor. There it is. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with, and let me get this where you can see it. And so this is looking at, you're looking in the schematic of the sensor upside down with the pins turned towards you. And so what can we see when we look at the schematic up there? Well, first of all, you see that there's a couple of potentiometers, and I haven't played around too much with the potentiometers, but the delay potentiometer, if it's all the way to the left, the delay is slow, and if it's all the way to the right, the delay is large. And so you can play around with the impact of a slow or large delay. I've got it set pretty much to the left, so if it sees something, it fires. If it doesn't see something, it turns off. It doesn't try to fire and hold, or it doesn't try to wait before it triggers. And this one, you can kind of tune the distance. If you want to ignore things further out, you can play with that potentiometer as well. But what we are really interested in are these three pins. So you can see the leftmost pin is VCC, and that is, even though the Raspberry Pi is a 3.3 volt device, the sensor wants 5 volts. And so we are going to take that leftmost pin, VCC, and then I'm going to connect it up here to the upper right with the USB pointing towards me. The upper right should be VCC. Okay, and because I am a careful type, I want to confirm, and it's the 5 volt VCC, I want to confirm where the ground is. The ground should be pin 6, so it's going to be 2, 4, 6. I'm going to skip one, and then I will be in the ground. And so you can see that I am now going to, I connected that up wrong. So red wire to the left pin when you're holding it upside down. Okay, and now right wire, or the next wire, is going to go to the right pin, which is ground, and that's going to be the third pin down, pin 2, 4, 6. And so now I've got this thing powered up, and now what I need is the center pin. The center pin is my output signal, so I'm going to use my orange wire there. Okay, you see my orange wire, and I am going to go to board pin 12. Now you notice when I'm using the Sunfounder breakout board on a breadboard, I use the BCM numbering system because the pins are labeled in BCM. But when I'm going just right off the Pi, I use the board system because you can count. And I believe we are going to use pin 12. And so I come over to the right column, and I'm going to go pin 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. This one should be 12. And then just to check and make sure, I have skipped 2 pins between ground and 12. And so let's see if that is right. If I come up, I was at ground. Okay, I was at ground, and then I skip 2 pins, I skip 8 and 10, and then I'm in 12. And so that does look, in fact, right. And I think we have this thing hooked up, and so we can get the schematic out of the way, and we can come back over here. And what I want to do is I want to sort of point it not directly at me. And this would be great if we kind of 3D printed a little mount for it, but we're just going to have to use the old bend the wires technique here. And that would be pretty good, because then I could come in, but then I want to put it over here so you can see me kind of interacting with it a little bit better. Okay, so I think that that is hooked up, and I think that we are ready to start coding. All right, so let me come over here. I hate this ugly thing of wires there. I really do. I hate that ugly thing of wires, but we're going to ignore the disarray of the wires, and we're going to come over here. And what I need you to do is fire up our old friend, Mr. Thoney. So we go to programming, come down to Thoney, and then boom, fresh new program, just waiting to be written. And then I'm going to go, I always like to save my program when I start so I don't forget to do it. At least it saves the name. And so I'm going to call this PIR-motion.py like that. Okay. And now boom, fresh new program, just waiting to be written. And then we're going to jump in here and get this thing going. And I think you guys are going to be pleased how easy it is to do this. Okay, how easy it is to do this. I'm trying to do a little adjustment here in my studio there. That's good. Okay, so we're going to be talking to our old friend Mr. GPIO pin 12. So we're going to have to import rpi.gpio as GPIO. And then we are going to need a delay. So I'm going to import time. I just have one delay. And so one thing you can do, I think I've shown you this before, but if you say from time import sleep. I think if we do it like that, if I'm remembering right. Now to sleep, all I got to do is say sleep instead of time.sleep, and so I kind of like doing that. Then our motion pin, where did we hook it? We hooked it to pin 12, but then we got to tell it what mode we're using, what board numbering mode we're using, and so I need to do a GPIO.set mode. And what mode am I going to set? It's GPIO.what.BOARD, like that, because we were using the numbering scheme from the board, not from the BCM system. Okay, we're moving right along here. Now we need to set that GPIO.set up, and what are we going to set up? We're going to set up the motion pin, and that is going to be a GPIO.end, because we're going to read from that pin. Okay, we're going to read from that pin. Now, the sensor needs a little time to normalize and look at the room and figure out what's going on. And so it's good for us to give it a 10-second delay. And then when you're firing up the program, you want to not be moving around because it's trying to get a reading of the room. And so you want to sort of not have something warm and moving in its field of view so it can get normalized. So I think probably a time.sleep of 10 seconds. Sometimes I've read people that recommend 30 seconds or a minute, but we're going to live dangerously here. And it's going to be kind of boring if you got to sit and wait for the program, sit and watch me wait for the program for a minute. So we're just going to do 10 seconds. And now we need to go ahead and set up our try. And I'll come back and write the program later, but let's go ahead and do the accept part while we're still thinking. And we're going to accept out on a keyboard interrupt like that. Did I spell that not right? No, I did not. Keyboard interrupt. And so what that means is it's going to be up in the try part until it sees Control C, and then it will hop down and execute this clause, which is just to clean up and release the GPIO pin. So the next guy that uses it, or the next time you run the program, it's starting with freed up GPIO pins. And then I want to see that I actually got down here, so I'm going to print GPIO good to go, like that. Close it, and now we're ready to come up and write the program. Well, you know that we're going to want to keep looking at the room, keep looking at the room, keep looking at the room, so we're going to create a loop while true. When it's true, true, true is always true, so this is an infinite loop until it sees the control C. Then what do we want to do in this loop? It's pretty simple. We want to look for motion. And so we create a variable motion, and that is going to be equal to GPIO.input. And where do I want to get my input from? Motion pin. That's pretty easy, right? And then we're going to come down here, and I'm going to print motion like that. And then let's see if my little trick up there, let's see if my little trick works up there. And I'm just going to say sleep for, let's say 0.1 seconds. Let's see if that's a good amount of time to sleep. Could it really be that easy? I ask you, can we do a high-tech intruder detection system with like, what is it, 14 lines of code? I hope so. How many mistakes did I make in here? How many mistakes did I make? Okay, let's see. I will need you all to hold your breath. Okay, we'll need you all to hold your breath. Denied. Time what? Okay. What did I do? I tried to get fancy and it didn't work. So I don't remember how to do that. So we're just going to say import time like that, the old-fashioned way, and I'll figure out how to do it next time. And I did time.sleep here, right? I did time.sleep instead of just doing sleep. And then I'll come down here and I will do time.sleep. I shouldn't try to do something without reviewing it, but I'll figure it out next time. Okay, we are going to come up here, and the real reason was one of you didn't hold your breath, so I need whoever it was to hold their breath this time. It's in the 10-second delay. Oh man, okay. All right, so what we're going to look at now is you can see down there that it is not detecting motion. And let me come over here and see if I can switch over to this view. And if you look in the upper left corner, you can see the readout. And then I am over here about 90 degrees to the side, and so I am out of the field of view of the sensor. And so if I move over here, because I'm right at the, well, it's almost seeing me over here. So it's getting pretty far out there that it can actually detect you. So it's got a pretty wide range of view here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, and you see as I bring my hand in, it sees it. Okay. And so as I bring my hand in, it's seeing it. But watch this. Okay. Now it doesn't see it. Now watch this. I'm going to bring my hand in, and I'm going to try to hold my hand very still. Okay. And so it sees it, but then now I've just become part of what it expects. But now, can I remove my hand without it detecting me? No, I can't. Okay, let me try it again. You can actually have a lot of fun with this. So let me get it where you can see it here. So it sees my hand, it triggered, and it alerted that it had detected something, but now it's just accepting it. It's not triggering on it. But let's see, could I remove my hand without triggering it? Well, no, I didn't do a very good job, even my thumb moving. So let's see if I move very slowly. No, I don't seem to be able to move slow enough for it to, for it to not detect. And so this is really a pretty amazing sensor, and it's pretty, it's pretty incredible how hard it is to fool it, and it's also pretty incredible how immune it is to false detections or false positives. And so it's really a really cool sensor. And what you can imagine is this was a quick lesson, and this was an easy lesson, but you've now gotten a very significant new tool in your toolkit, and you can use this as part of all types of different projects. Like, imagine you could have a system where if someone is in the room, you turn the lights on, and then when the person leaves the room, you turn the lights off. And I think in most cases, well, I just said that, but is that really true? I guess what I can just see is is there a, is there, what you would want to see is there enough motion with just a normal person sitting that the light would stay on? I guess if you went to sleep, it would probably go off, but if you're moving at all, it would probably stay on. And you might be able to play with that delay. That I think the delay will go up to 300 seconds, and so perhaps it only goes off if it hasn't seen motion in 300 seconds. There's one other thing that I didn't tell you, and you can play around with the different configurations here. But do you see this jumper over here? I didn't tell you about this. Okay, do you see in the upper right there is a jumper, and you can do the low or you can do the high. That is, you can put the jumper on the inside 2 pins or the outside 2 pins, and that sort of affects how it triggers and resets. And I played around with it, and I have it set on the inside ones. You can try inside and outside and see which triggering mode, whether you want it to trigger or reset. And it's kind of a little subtle what it does, but play around with those 2 trigger modes and see which one you like better. Okay, so where I see going with this is I see using this to trigger the Raspberry Pi camera when we get to the camera lessons, and we could create like a little security camera using nothing more than what's in your Raspberry Pi kit. Boat up there. I love that boat. I've been on that boat. Mr. Chevy drives that boat. Captain Chevy is technically what we would be calling him, and he's a great guy. And sometimes when we need to ride somewhere, Mr. Chevy, Captain Chevy, will come down to our dock and pick us up. So yeah, we get to see the boat. But I digress. So what I want to do is I want to be able to have that component in our toolkit for future lessons. What your homework is to incorporate this into some sort of project, and then what I need you to do is post what your idea was to YouTube and show what you've done with the proximity sensor and what you've learned today. Then down in the comments below, put a link over to your video, and then your video in the description, put a link back to this video so that anybody watching it will know what you're talking about. And kind of like, if you're not good at coming up with your own ideas, at least connect to the RGB LED. And then if it detects something, turn the RGB LED red for like intruder alert. And if it's all clear, turn it yellow. Okay, turn it green, all clear, red, intruder alert. So you're going to control the color of the LED based on whether you've seen an intruder or not. And then you could also even get fancy with your color schemes. You could have green is all clear. You could have red, presently an intruder, active intruder with red, and then yellow could be all clear now, but we did see something during the time that you were absent. So you could sort of create different scenarios of the light indicating not just what's happening now, but what had happened in the earlier times. And so, you can play around with that. Or if you want to get more sophisticated, you can try to do something more sophisticated. Guys, I really hope that you're also taking the 3D printing, the Fusion 360 3D printing class that I'm doing on this channel, because you can see really quickly we're going to want to start building units that we would like print an enclosure or print a case for. So if you take what I'm learning, if you take what I'm teaching you in this series of lessons and you add that 3D printing and that Fusion 360, it's going to get to some pretty powerful things that we can do. Oh, look, there's the fisherman going by. Is it just me, or do you guys love to see the fishermen as well? I'm going to watch them go back by. There they are. But so hope you'll take the Fusion 360 class. Also, I hope you're having as much fun taking these lessons as I am making them. I am really loving both of these classes that I'm doing right now. And if you enjoy it, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And most importantly, share this with other people, particularly if you know some young people out there. Try to get them involved, maybe hook them up with some hardware, because, seriously, the world needs more people building things and doing engineering, and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I'll talk to you guys next week.